Welcome to Voices of the Case. In this episode, we want to tell you the story of Jodi Arias, the girlfriend who killed.
If you enjoy true crime, subscribe to Voices of the Case so you never miss an episode.
Okay, so the story we're diving into today, it's one that, well, it gripped pretty much everyone for years. The Jodi Arias case and the tragic death of Travis Alexander.
Absolutely. Travis. Born in Riverside, California, July 28, 1977. He was only 30 when he died.
Yeah, just 30. And he was working as a salesman, right?
Yeah.
And a motivational speaker for prepaid legal services, PPL.
That's right. And PPL is actually, kind of ironically, how we ended up meeting Jodi Arias. It connects them right at the start.
His early life, though, it wasn't exactly straightforward, was it?
No, not at all. His father, Gary, passed away back in '97. And even before that, when Travis was about 11, he went to live with his grandparents, his dad's parents.
And his siblings, too, after his father died.
Yeah, all 7 of his siblings also ended up being taken in by their paternal grandmother. Shows you the kind of family support system they had trying to cope with that loss. Yeah. He's buried back in Riverside now, Olivewood Memorial Park.
And then there's Jodi Arias, born July 9, 1980, Salinas, California. So she was, what, 27 at the time this all went down?
Yep, 27. Her parents were William and Sandra Arias. And the meeting point, like you said, was that PPL conference in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
September 2006.
That meeting really set things in motion, didn't it?
It really did.
Yeah.
Soon after, Jodi actually converted to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Travis's faith.
And Travis baptized her.
He did. November 26, 2006, down in Southern California. And by February 2007, things had turned romantic between them. It's this mix of, spiritual connection and romance that, well, took a very dark turn.
She even moved to Mesa, Arizona to be closer to him.
Right, but that didn't last too long. By April 2008, she'd moved again, this time up to Eureka, California, living with her grandparents.
That constant moving, it sort of hints at the relationship itself, maybe? Unstable?
I think that's fair to say. Their relationship, over about a year and a half, was definitely tumultuous. On again, off again, long distance between Arizona and California.
And his friends, what did they think?
Generally, not good things. Reports suggest they found her behavior, well, unsettling, concerning. They saw the relationship as really volatile. Little did they know just how dangerous things would get.
Okay, let's get to the core of it. Wednesday, June 4, 2008, inside Travis Alexander's house in Mesa. That's where the horror unfolds.
Yeah, and the details that came out later, just gruesome. The autopsy showed he was stabbed somewhere between 27 and 29 times.
27 to 29. Wow.
And his throat was slashed. I mean, really severely. It cut the jugular vein, the carotid artery, the trachea.
Just devastating. And there were defensive wounds.
Yes, on his hands. Clear signs he fought back. And on top of all that, a gunshot wound to the head. The level of violence is just staggering.
The medical examiner, Kevin Horn, he had some insights into the sequence, didn't he?
He did. He testified it was possible Travis was already dead, or at least dying, from the stabbing and throat wounds when he was shot. He also noted some wounds on the back were more superficial.
And didn't one detective say he was almost decapitated?
Yeah, that chilling detail came out during an interrogation. Just underscores the sheer brutality of the attack.
When the police first spoke to Jodi, her behavior was odd.
Extremely odd. Reports say she was, attentive, responsive when male detectives questioned her. But with a female detective, almost completely silent.
Did she really suggest she'd talk more to a man?
Apparently so. It's a really strange detail, especially given the gravity of this situation. Raises a lot of questions about her mindset right after it happened.
Before his body was found, there were signs something was wrong. He was planning a trip, wasn't he?
Yeah, a work trip to Cancun, set for June 15th. Initially, back early in 2008, he'd said Jodi was going with him.
But he changed his mind.
He did. In April, just a couple months before the murder, he asked a different female friend to go instead. It hints at, maybe pulling away from Jodi, trying to create some distance. We don't know exactly why.
And then there was that strange robbery at her grandparents' place.
Right, May 28th, 2008, just days before the murder. A robbery reported in Eureka, where she was staying, and what was stolen, a .25 caliber handgun.
Which was never found.
Never recovered. And that becomes incredibly significant, doesn't it?
Because they found a .25 caliber shell casing near Travis's body.
Exactly. A spent casing, same caliber as the gun stolen from the house where Jodi was living just days earlier. Coincidence? Investigators certainly didn't think so. It immediately pointed towards her.
What about their communication right before there were phone calls?
Yeah, the early hours of June 2nd. Between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m., Jodi called Travis 4 times. But they were super brief calls, like the longest was 17 seconds, almost like checking if he was there maybe. But he called her back. He did after 3 a.m. 2 calls. One lasted 18 minutes, the next one 41 minutes. Then she called him again around 4 a.m. for about 3 minutes.
So they were talking quite a bit just days before.
Intense conversations, it seems. But we don't know what was said. No transcripts were ever used in the trial. It leaves a big gap in understanding their final interactions.
Then later that morning, June 2nd, she starts this trip, buys gas in Eureka.
Right, around 5:39 a.m., then drives south, and by 8:04 a.m. she's renting a car in Redding, California. Said she'd return it there.
Wait, she rented another car?
Well, she rented the one in Redding for a supposed long trip to Utah. It's confusing. Why rent a car for a long trip when you've just driven south in your own vehicle? It definitely raised eyebrows about her actual plans.
So after getting the rental, she goes south first to visit friends.
Yeah, Southern California. Visited friends, met up with that PPL colleague, Ryan Burns. Then apparently, late on June 3rd, she heads towards Salt Lake City. The whole route seems deliberately complicated.
Meanwhile, back in Mesa, Travis misses a call on June 4th.
An important conference call that evening. Totally out of character for him. That was the first real red flag for his friends and colleagues that something was seriously wrong.
And the next day, June 5th, Jodi meets Ryan Burns in Utah.
Yep, West Jordan, near Salt Lake. Attends business meetings. And Burns noticed things.
Like what?
Her hair, for one, she'd been blonde, now was dark brown. A sudden change. And he saw cuts on her hands. Small details, but they become pretty chilling later on.
Then she heads back to California on the 6th.
Right, driving west. And during that drive, she's calling Travis repeatedly, leaving voicemails, even accessing his voicemail system.
After he was already dead.
Exactly. It's incredibly disturbing behavior. What was she trying to achieve?
When she returned the rental car on June 7th, what condition was it in?
It had racked up about 2,600 miles. And the rental agent noted the floor mats were missing. Also saw what looked like red stains on the front and back seats.
Were they confirmed to be blood?
Unfortunately, no. They couldn't confirm if the mats were there to begin with, and the stains weren't tested because the car was cleaned before investigators got to it. A lost opportunity for crucial evidence.
And the discovery of the body, June 9th. His friends were worried.
Deeply worried. They couldn't reach him. His roommates thought he was just out of town, so they weren't initially alarmed. But the friends persisted. Found a spare key to his bedroom.
And that's when they found him?
Yeah. They opened the door and saw just large pools of blood in the bathroom hallway, leading to the shower, where they found Travis's body. An absolutely horrific discovery for them.
The 911 call they made. It wasn't played for the jury, but it contained some important info.
We did.
Yeah.
The dispatcher asked about suicide, or if someone might have been angry enough to hurt him. And his friends, right then and there, named Jodi Arias.
Why? What did they say?
They told the dispatcher Travis had said she was stalking him, hacking into his Facebook, that she had slashed his tires. These weren't just suspicions after the fact. This is what Travis had apparently been telling them before he died.
Then the police find the camera in the washing machine.
Yep, damaged. But they managed to recover deleted photos from the memory card. And those photos were bombshells.
The sexually suggestive ones.
Those, yes. Taken around 1:40 p.m. on June 4th, the day he died, showing them together intimately.
But there are later photos, too.
Even more damning. The last photo of Travis alive, in the shower, time-stamped 5:29 p.m. that same day, and then photos just moments later showing someone, presumed to be Travis, bleeding profusely on the bathroom floor.
So the camera literally captured the timeline.
Pretty much. It completely undercut Jodi's later stories about when and how things happened. A digital witness, in a way.
And the bloody palm print.
Another critical piece. Found on the bathroom hallway wall. Forensics confirmed it contained DNA from both Jodi Arias and Travis Alexander. Undeniable proof she was there, right at the scene during the violence.
So with all that evidence piling up,
it led to her indictment for first-degree murder on July 9th, 2008. She was arrested 6 days later, extradited back to Arizona in September, and pleaded not guilty on September 11th. The stage was set for a massive trial.
But her story about what happened, it wasn't consistent, was it?
Not even close. First, she denied being anywhere near Mesa on June 4th. Claimed the last time she saw him was way back in March 2008.
That didn't last long with the evidence they had.
Nope. So then, the story shifted dramatically. She claimed 2 masked intruders broke in, killed Travis, and attacked her too.
Which also didn't line up with the evidence.
Not at all. It sounded completely unbelievable to investigators and later to many others. Seemed like a desperate fabrication.
And then finally, the third version.
Yeah, almost 2 years after her arrest. She admitted she killed him, but claimed it was self-defense, alleged he was abusive, that she was a victim of domestic violence.
3 completely different stories. That had to hurt her credibility.
Immensely. It became a central issue at trial. Why it changes, what was the truth? It cast doubt on everything she said.
Before the trial even started, there were legal battles, right? About the prosecutors.
April 2009, the defense tried to get the Maricopa County Attorney's Office disqualified. That motion was denied.
And she had to undergo competency tests.
Yes, in May 2009. Standard procedure in many ways to ensure she understood the charges and could assist in her defense. The results weren't widely publicized, though.
The defense was also pushing for messages and emails.
Absolutely. Trying to get texts and emails between Jodi and Travis. Initially, the prosecution said Travis's texts weren't available, but the court later ordered them to hand over hundreds.
And thousands of emails, too.
Around 8,000 of Travis's emails were eventually given to the defense in June 2009. Imagine sifting through all that looking for anything helpful. Detective Flores had apparently told the defense there was nothing out of the ordinary in them, but they still got that huge volume of data.
So the trial finally gets underway. Jury selection started in December 2012.
Right, voir dire began December 10th, with Judge Sherry K. Stevens presiding, a really critical phase.
And the defense immediately raised concerns about bias in jury selection.
They did, argued the prosecution was systematically excluding women and black individuals. A serious accusation.
How did the prosecution respond?
Prosecutor Juan Martinez denied it flat out. Said race and sex had nothing to do with his jury choices. Judge Stevens ultimately agreed with the prosecution, ruling there was no bias shown. So the trial moved forward with that jury.
January 2nd, 2013, opening statements. And the prosecution drops the bombshell. They're seeking the death penalty.
Yes, Martinez made that clear from the outset. High stakes from day one.
And the defense strategy, led by Kirk Nurmi and Jennifer Wilmart.
Their argument was justifiable homicide, self-defense, not premeditated murder. That was the core battle line.
Ryan Burns testified early on about her visit to Utah.
Yeah, recounting their time together, the cuddling, kissing, and crucially, her explanation for the cuts on her hands, that she break glass working at a Margaritaville.
Which turned out to be false.
Completely false. A detective confirmed there was no Margaritaville there. She actually worked at a place called Casa Ramos. When Jodi testified, she tried to backtrack, saying she cut her finger at Casa Ramos and then had a million margaritas to make. It just added to the pattern of inconsistencies.
The prosecution really hammered the premeditation angle, didn't they, with the gun?
Oh, yeah. The .25 caliber bullet found near the body, matching the caliber of the gun stolen from her grandparents' house just days before. Their argument was simple. She stole the gun, planning to use it.
Plus the stalking allegations.
Right. The claim she'd stalked him, slashed his tires twice, and those chilling things Travis reportedly said to friends right before his death, calling her a sociopath, the worst thing that's ever happened to me, saying he was afraid of her. It painted a picture of extreme fear and obsession.
Then Jodi takes the stand herself, February 4th, 2013, and stays there for 18 days.
An incredibly long time. 18 days. Legal analysts were stunned. It gave her a massive amount of time to tell her story.
And she started by alleging abuse from her parents.
Yes. Claimed violent abuse from age 7. She also tried to explain the Reading car rental again, something about the website options and her brother living there. Still seemed a bit convoluted.
She went into a lot of detail about their sex life, too.
Extremely graphic detail at times. Oral and anal sex, Travis's alleged belief it didn't violate Mormon rules, eventual vaginal intercourse, and then the phone sex tape she'd recorded without his knowledge.
Why did she record that?
Apparently she wanted leverage, maybe to embarrass him in his religious community. It was shocking when it was played in court.
And the accusations against Travis? Pedophilic desires.
Yeah, she claimed he was attracted to minors, boys and girls, and that she tried to help him. But forensic experts found zero evidence of any child pornography on his computer. It felt like a desperate, unsubstantiated attack on his character after his death.
Then her testimony shifted towards him being abusive towards her.
Right. She described incidents of alleged physical and emotional abuse, shaking her, yelling, kicking her. She even showed the jury a crooked finger she claimed was injured during one of these fights. This was all part of building the self-defense narrative.
Culminating in her account of June 4th.
Exactly. Claiming he attacked her after she dropped her camera and she killed him fighting for her life. But this was, again, her third major version of events. The prosecution brought in rebuttal witnesses, like Travis's ex-girlfriends, who all said he was never violent or angry with them, directly contradicting her claims.
What about that Inside Edition interview clip, the "no jury will convict me" line?
Oh, that was a huge moment, played in court. Her saying, "No jury is going to convict me because I'm innocent. You can mark my words on that."
And her explanation for saying that?
Just bizarre. She claimed she was planning to commit suicide back then, so she was sure no jury would convict her because she wouldn't be alive for the trial. A shocking and, frankly, unbelievable explanation for many.
Martinez's cross-examination must have been intense.
It was relentless. He hammered her on the lies, the inconsistencies. And after days of grilling, she finally cracked, admitting she did stab and shoot Travis, despite previously claiming memory loss about the actual killing. A major admission.
The defense brought in psychologists, like Dr. Richard Samuels.
Yeah, he testified starting March 14th. Argued she likely had acute stress disorder during the killing, triggering a fight or flight response causing memory loss. He diagnosed her with PTSD.
But Martinez attacked his credibility.
Aggressively. Accused him of bias, suggesting he had an inappropriate relationship with Arias, reminding the jury Samuels admitted feeling compassion for her, trying to paint him as compromised.
Then psychotherapist Alice Laviolette testified about domestic abuse.
Right, starting March 26th. She supported the idea Jodi was a victim, explained why victims often don't disclose abuse. Mentioned emails where Travis's friends advised Jodi to leave him, some even saying he'd abused women before.
And the jury had a lot of questions for her.
A staggering amount, nearly 160 questions. Many focused on Jodi's credibility and whether Laviolette's assessment was accurate, showed how closely the jury was scrutinizing everything.
The prosecution had their own psychologist, Dr. Janine DeMart.
And she directly contradicted the defense experts, found no evidence Travis abused Jodi, no signs of PTSD or amnesia in Jodi. Said the kind of total memory loss Jodi claimed wasn't consistent with trauma-induced amnesia.
What was DeMart's diagnosis then?
Borderline personality disorder, pointing to immaturity, unstable identity, and this terrifying sensation of being abandoned, offering a completely different psychological profile.
And the defense had one more psychologist, Dr. Robert Geffner.
Yes, he disagreed with the borderline diagnosis, suggested a trauma-induced anxiety disorder instead. Importantly, he testified that psychological tests indicated Jodi had answered honestly, a direct counter to the prosecution narrative.
The prosecution then brought back the medical examiner and another expert.
Right. Recalled Dr. Horn to clarify testimony on the gunshot wound's timing, and called forensic neuropsychologist Jill Hayes to question Dr. Geffner's methodology regarding the MMPI test and borderline diagnosis. More expert battling.
Let's not forget the gas can testimony. The Walmart employee,
Amanda Webb, testified on April 24th. Crucial testimony refuting Jodi's claim she returned a gas can on June 3rd. Webb said Walmart records showed it was returned about a week after she bought it.
Why was the gas can timing so important?
Premeditation. The prosecution argued Jodi bought it to carry extra gas so she wouldn't have to stop at gas stations en route to Mesa, thus avoiding security cameras. Returning it later fit that theory of a pre-planned trip.
But trial was so long, it started affecting the jury itself.
Yeah, major issues. April 3rd, a juror was dismissed for misconduct. Defense asked for a mistrial. Denied.
Then another juror excused for health reasons.
April 12th. And then a third juror dismissed April 25th after a DUI arrest. By then, the defense costs were already soaring, like $1.7 million. It raised real questions about keeping the trial going fairly.
Finally, May 7, 2013, the verdict.
After about 15 hours of deliberation, guilty, first-degree murder, unanimous on premeditated murder, and 7 jurors also found her guilty of felony murder. A huge moment.
But it wasn't over. The aggravation phase came next.
Correct, to determine death penalty eligibility. The prosecution had to prove the murder was cruel, heinous, or depraved.
What happened in that phase?
Started May 15th. Prosecution only called Dr. Horn, the ME, to reiterate the brutality and likely suffering.
And the defense?
Their lawyers had tried to get off the case but failed. They gave brief statements suggesting maybe adrenaline lessened Travis's pain. Seemed like a weak argument.
Martinez showed the crime scene photos again.
Yes, graphic photos. And then he had that dramatic 2 minutes of silence representing the time he claimed it took Travis to die. It was powerful. The jury took less than 3 hours to find her eligible for death.
Then the penalty phase proper. Victim impact statements.
Started May 16th. Travis's family gave incredibly emotional statements. Heartbreaking stuff, really aimed at persuading the jury towards the death penalty.
And Jodi spoke too. An elocution.
Yes, on May 21st. She pleaded for her life, asking for a life sentence. which was a total reversal from what she'd told a reporter right after the conviction that she preferred death.
Now, why the change of heart?
She said she lacked perspective before, couldn't imagine asking for her life until recently, claimed she wanted to spare her family more pain. An emotional plea.
She did a jailhouse interview that night, too.
Yeah, with several news outlets. Sounded uncertain about the jury's decision. Said she felt betrayed by the guilty verdict, hoped they'd seen things for what they are, worried about her family. A mix of feelings, it seemed.
But the penalty phase jury, they couldn't agree.
No. May 23rd, 2013, it ended in a hung jury. 8-4 in favor of death, but not unanimous. So Judge Stevens had to declare mistrial for the penalty phase. Her sentence was still up in the air.
The jury foreman spoke afterwards.
He did. Said the decision was incredibly difficult. They were all exhausted mentally and emotionally. Felt like they'd failed by not reaching a unanimous verdict. Just shows the toll it took.
So what were the next steps? The prosecutor, Bill Montgomery.
He held a press conference May 30th. Said he still thought they could get an impartial jury for a penalty phase retrial, but acknowledged they might just agree to life without parole to end it if the family agreed.
Jodi herself doubted they could find an impartial jury, right?
Yeah, she'd said something like, "I don't think there's an untainted jury anywhere in the world at this point." Kind of resigned to whatever happened.
And her lawyers argued against seeking death again.
They did, pointing out that if the state's own psychologist diagnosed her as mentally ill, borderline personality disorder, then seeking death for someone with no prior criminal record was inappropriate, highlighting the ethical dilemma.
There were also those earlier mistrial motions during the first trial about Detective Flores.
Right. Back in January 2013, the defense claimed Flores committed perjury in a 2009 hearing about whether the death penalty should even be on the table.
What was the alleged perjury about?
Flores testified in R9 that based on his review and talking to the ME, Travis was shot before the other injuries. But at trial, the ME said the opposite gunshot likely came after the stabbing and throat slashing, given the defensive wounds.
Did Flores admit he lied?
No, he denied perjury. Said during the trial he'd simply misunderstood what the ME told him earlier. The judge denied that mistrial motion.
And another motion about death threats to a witness?
Yes, May 20th, 2013. A defense witness planning to testify favorably for Jodi apparently backed out after receiving credible death threats. This followed earlier threats against Elise LaViolette. The judge denied that motion too. It was getting messy.
The defense tried to appeal these denials immediately.
They did, asked for a stay to appeal to the Arizona Supreme Court. Denied. The Supreme Court also later declined to review a separate appeal about the cruelty aggravator that the defense argued was improperly allowed. The courts consistently sided with the trial judge's rulings.
But the appeals process didn't stop there. Years later.
Right. July 2018, her appellate lawyers filed a massive 324-page appeal. The main arguments: excessive prejudicial media coverage and serious prosecutorial misconduct denied her a fair trial.
Did the Court of Appeals agree?
They heard arguments again in October 2019, but in March 2020, they upheld her conviction. They did call the prosecutor's conduct atrocious and self-promoting, which is pretty strong language from a court.
But they still upheld the conviction.
Yeah. They basically said, despite the misconduct, the evidence of her guilt was so overwhelming that she would have been convicted anyway, a major setback for her appeal efforts.
So that led to the sentencing retrial, just for the penalty phase, started October 2014.
Exactly. New jury just deciding life or death, and some testimony shifted slightly.
Like the Walmart employee, Amanda Webb.
Under cross-examination, she admitted she couldn't be 100% certain all store records were perfectly transferred after a store relocation. Introduced a tiny bit of doubt about the gas can timeline.
And the information about Travis's laptop.
That was significant. Mesa PD experts admitted in the retrial that his laptop did have viruses and some pornography, which directly contradicted testimony from the first trial where they had said it was clean, kind of chipped away at the pristine image presented earlier.
The new jury started deliberating in February 2015.
They did, but on March 2nd, they told the judge they were deadlocked.
Defense asked for a mistrial again.
Immediately. Judge Stevens denied it, gave them more instructions, told them to keep trying.
Didn't work, though?
Nope. Still deadlocked. So on March 5, 2015, Judge Stevens declared a mistrial for the penalty phase. Again.
And the vote was reportedly 11-1 for death.
That's what came out later. One single juror holding out, apparently sympathetic to Arias, maybe had an agenda. Because it wasn't unanimous, the death penalty was officially off the table.
So the final sentencing?
Scheduled for April 7th, but happened April 13, 2015. Judge Stevens sentenced Jodi Arias to life in prison, no possibility of parole. By that point, the estimated cost of both trials was around $3 million, a huge expense.
Her attorney, Jennifer Wilmot, gave an interview after.
Yeah, talked about the crazy social media frenzy, the death threats she received, Jodi's statements. The holdout juror said she personally believed Jodi testified sincerely, gave some insight into the defense perspective.
And the restitution.
In June 2015, Jodi was ordered to pay over $32,000 in restitution to Travis's brothers. Her lawyer noted it was about a third of what the family had asked for, one of the final legal footnotes in this incredibly long and tragic case.
A truly disturbing case with so many twists and turns and such a media spectacle surrounding it all.
Absolutely. One that people are still talking about, still debating, even now.
That's it for this episode of Voices of the Case. Don't forget to subscribe and see you next time.